Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of She's Got Game. Can't believe that we are already 4 weeks in. Thank you to everyone who's been rocking with us so far. We appreciate all of the support, all of the love that you guys have been giving us so far.
Yes. We really appreciate it. And as we continue this month of March with Women's History Month, as we promised, we're going to give you guys a guest every single week. And we have a very special guest today. Today joining us is Coach Erica Anderson. She is, let me get her title together. She's the Associate Athletic Director, as well as the head women's basketball and volleyball coach for Paul Quinn College here in Dallas, Texas. Welcome, Coach, and thank you for coming on our show today.
Hello, ladies, and thank you for having me. This is truly a blessing and an honor for you to accept me on your show today.
I feel special.
I was like, of course.
We appreciate you, and trust me, because it's Women's History Month, we do want to give you the credit that you deserve. You've been with Paul Quinn College, which is the HBCU here, probably I think the eldest HBCU in, is it in Texas? One of the oldest institutions for HBCU?
Yes, and it is, and it is the only HBCU in the DFW Metroplex.
Yeah, all right. So that's a big ups right there. Already. And you've been there with Paul Quinn for the past 5 years, correct?
Yeah, I mean, unofficially and officially. 5 seasons, but right at 4 years, 4.5 years. So, yes.
Listen, and I know you from back in the PV days when you was assistant coach, and then so to watch your progression throughout the years has been truly wonderful. And I know that you guys you have a pretty much a solid team. And going through COVID, how has that pretty much affected you personally and professionally with your team? Like, how was that going through that this year or this past year?
Well, let me not talk about me first. Let me talk about the team, as they are the most important individuals in this situation. It's been difficult considering the year prior to, we didn't have our best season. I don't want to put any blame on the fact that we weren't as good or whatever the reason is, but the reason I'd say it is because I was pregnant the very first half of the season. I managed to have a baby in November, when that's the kind of start up really of the meat of basketball season. And I think that with me being pregnant, I was involved, but obviously my health is more important to where I couldn't yell, I couldn't get in them as much as I wanted to. Some days I was more tired than others, but we kind of had a rocky start. From there, we picked it up, and we just didn't really finish strong the way we wanted to, but we did finish well. With that, I got a lot of girls that are returning from that season. 3 of my top 4 scorers were returning. My leading rebounders, leading assister, leading steal, my steals leader, she's returning, and then boom, we get hit with COVID. So at the time, I have a baby, we're getting reacclimated and adjusted, and then we get hit with COVID. At that point, my child is 3 months, and then now she's right at 15 months, almost 16 months. And the girls haven't seen her since she was 3 months. So just looking at that time frame, emotionally, they've been without basketball for a little over a year. And COVID has definitely been tough, because if you are like me, and you eat, sleep, breathe basketball, what do you do in your off days? True enough, you go to the gym, you go run, you go do this, but with everything being closed, it was such an adjustment to have to work out in your backyard or work out in your garage or try to make yourself better with limited ability to get into a gym. So for the team, I know it was definitely a struggle. I got millions of phone calls, probably in a year time already, about how much of emotional wrecks they were, not knowing, one, the outcome of how this was all going to play out, two, just not being able to see their sisters and have that normal camaraderie, and three, not knowing their fate moving forward with, are we going to have basketball anymore, or is this just COVID is going to be the norm? So with all of that being said, that took a toll on me. Just because I know those are like my other children. All these years I've been coaching, I always tell my husband, like, I have so many kids. So it's okay if I don't have a baby. But, you know, I have so many kids and I feel their pain, because I even went through emotional ups and downs, because what I'm used to doing is coaching. What I'm used to doing is recruiting. And true enough, my baby was born, and it was important for me to be there in her first year of life, which that's a blessing, because most women don't get that option if they're a full-time, if they're, you know, have full-time jobs, they don't get that option. So I'm thankful that I was able to have that, but I didn't have an equal balance. So probably about 5-6 months in, I guess the vacation of it went away, and it was more like, what am I doing? I wake up every day and I do the same thing. So I didn't really have the postpartum, but I want to say that I had like a postpartum or retroactive postpartum effect, because I wasn't doing my normal due diligence for my young ladies. And it was definitely tough. And it took me a while to actually say, like, hey, you're depressed. You're going to need to do something to get out of that state of mind. Because, I mean, I love the game of basketball, and just not knowing what was what from day to day was very, very tough on me. And I don't think that I took it out on my child, but I think that, you know, I utilized being a mother as a crutch for not having it. And maybe I spoiled her a little too much during that time because of that. So.
And I think that that's super important, because like, even when like the whole conversation has came, like, as far as like greatest athlete ever, like when like you talking and like sharing your story, when people like talk about women, number one, like women, and then like us being able to do our job, number two, and then three, like beyond the circumstances, you know what I'm saying? Like, not only were you pregnant, but you have to deal with what's happening after pregnancy. Like that, it's a thing, you know, and people don't understand it's a thing. So I think that like when you were talking, I was thinking of like, when people like talk about athletes and greatest athlete ever and all that stuff, like in my head, I'm like thinking of Serena, because I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like the argument always comes, and it's Tom Brady, it's Michael Jordan, it's Muhammad Ali. Oh, that all sounds great. But let me tell you, like, and I'm not speaking because like I've had a child, I'm just speaking because I've known people like you telling your story, like having someone grow inside of you and being able to finish what you have to, like being able to finish your day-to-day activities, and even after that, it's a thing. Like it's harder than what it looks like. And so when people talk about that, and I think of Serena Williams, and you know, they just don't give women enough credit. Like for you saying that you were pregnant, like that's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? So like, how was that?
I coached basically the start of our season was in November of 2019. She wasn't due until December, but I ended up having her on November 20th. So I had to abandon my team the week of me actually having her, which I didn't know I was going to have her. But they went to New Orleans, and my doctor was like, you can't go. And I was like, wait, whoa, my team needs me. And my doctor was like, sorry, you're just past that threshold to where you can't actually travel anymore because you're at risk for possibly having a child. And lo and behold, they get to where they're going, and then boom, I go into labor. Right after she said I wasn't going to, mind you. But that's one reason why, I don't know if you guys have seen the new Nike commercial.
Yeah.
That is probably the best thing out right now, because finally they're embracing motherhood as something that is not taboo anymore in women's sports. And at one point in time, it was taboo. Having kids after your career is over with. But now they're embracing it because it's a natural thing, and it's okay because women can bounce back.
Especially like in basketball, like I think it was Skylar Diggins or somebody, after they had their baby, and people think, oh, well, she got a baby, she's done. And like you said, that's not the case at all. And I'm happy that, like you said, the Nike commercial is starting to embrace it more, because people don't know that may be the hardest job on earth. No lie. You can be a coach. You can be the president of the United States. You can be anything.
You can be a regular Walmart bagger and still struggle with a child. And that's the story that needs to be told, is because it's not easy for everyone. But the women that make it look easy are the women that we need to applaud.
Heroes. And that's why you on this show today, girl.
No, seriously. I don't think that is talked about enough. Like, I think that in the world and in sports, even, like, we applaud the biggest athletes for doing, they like
what they get paid to do.
Yeah, like, but I feel like it's a different thing when you like have to create, like, when a human is growing inside of you and you are able to do your job. And then even after that, I feel like after that is even harder because your life changes. So I feel like even after that, women, they just, okay, I had a baby and now this is, okay, I'm going back to work. And it doesn't get spotlighted enough because it's not as easy as we, and I say as women, but it's not as easy as we make it look. You know what I'm saying? Like, we make it look easy because if we make it look hard, then we're talked about and we look weak and we look like we can't handle it. But it's not an easy job. And so, like, that's why, like, we applaud women everywhere that they're able to do like miraculous things and like have babies, and in between having babies they're coaching, and after having babies they're still coaching, and they're recruiting, and they're doing everything they're supposed to do. It's not as easy as we make it look. It's not easy. We make it look easy because that's just what we're supposed to do, because we don't sweat, and hey, it's what we're supposed to do. It is what it is. I got a job, I got a baby, I got a family, boom. You know what I'm saying? But it's not as easy, and I think that needs to be spotlighted more. It's not easy, but we're making it like we get it done, but it's not easy, but we get it done. So we applaud you mothers that are like trailblazers in this sports society. Like, it's amazing to see. So like, you talking about that, like, we applaud you.
We definitely applaud you, Coach. Back to the COVID thing, and on top of you being a new mom and all of that, you have to worry about recruiting. And I know it's been tough because sometimes, like, some schools are not playing at the moment, or, how was that recruiting process during this time?
Most high schools decided to play this season. Certain states shut down. Like, I remember Chicago shut down for a certain amount of time. In that area shut down for a little bit of time. I know all of California shut down. Most states still played, but they had stipulations. In the DFW area, they played, but there were limitations to fans. So, as a college coach, you had to either know one of the parents of one of the players or know the coach to try to get on a list early enough to ensure admissions. it's tough because first of all, I have to think about my family. I have to think about my daughter and not put her at risk. But I also have to think about the job that pays me to make sure that she's still getting what she needs. Because through all this time, I was fortunate enough for my president to say, we're not going to lay off our coaches. We're not going to do any of those things because we know that we hit a bump in the road, but we're going to get over it. So I was blessed to still, receive my same income monthly, but that doesn't mean just because I was receiving that, don't work, So my work really consisted of being on the phone regularly, talking to contacts and connections that I've known, that I trust, that know me, that know my system, that know the type of players that I have. Also talking to people about getting game film. As much as I hate evaluating game film, and when I say I hate it with a passion. That was something that was necessary this year. So sometimes you ended up taking some kids that maybe you wouldn't have taken if you saw them in person. Maybe you weren't able to see body language. You weren't able to hear parents in the stands. Like one thing about me, as I recruit families. I don't just recruit a player. I'm going to recruit, if mother and father are present, if just mother, if just father, if it's grandparents, if it's coaches. I'm recruiting the whole student because I need to know where they come from so I know how to coach them. If I know they're not getting the same parental and background support that I believe in as a coach, then 9 times out of 10, we're not going to mesh. I'm going to end up bumping heads with you and releasing you because I don't have a backing from your support system when I do things that are right, but you may see as a player being wrong because you don't necessarily understand the wrongs and the rights as a freshman. Well, definitely film was like number one. I was able to get out to a lot of the local games, but if there were kids that weren't local, I just hadn't seen them. I've been to some practices. It's just been tougher because you just have to say, am I going to take this kid or am I not? And then you have to do your research. Talk to a lot of people that may have seen this individual play. I'm just blessed that I have connections that'll make a phone call and I trust their judgment because they've known me for years. I also have enough connections that if I'm looking at a kid in a particular area, I can call and say, hey, do you know this kid? If you don't, can you find out some more about them? And that's worked for me. I've been blessed to get 2 commitments currently. Well, I say 2, really. Yeah, I know I have 4 commitments and I am waiting on 2, maybe 3 more. Yes, I'm bringing in 5, maybe 6 new players, but with COVID, I just don't know what to expect from my players. I don't know if they're going to opt out of not coming next season, which I've had that conversation with the whole team and nobody has made that drastic of a choice yet, but grades and being out for a whole year, there are so many things emotionally and academically that could take a toll on the team. So what I don't want to do is go in thinking that I have a team of 15 and ultimately by midsummer it's more like 10, but I only recruited 2 or 3 players. So if any of my players are watching this, I did over-recruit, and I over-recruited on purpose because I don't trust all of you all the time. But I think that I went out with the mindset of getting more freshmen. The class of 2021, unfortunately, has been dealt a very bad hand with the rules that have been changed. The rules are now, everyone's getting their year back. So if students aren't matriculating out of these institutions, there's limited cap space, there's limited scholarship funds. So now you're looking at kids that might have been deserving of a full scholarship, maybe not get one, or maybe get a partial. And it's been tough. So that's the reason why I think that I've looked up on kids that maybe wouldn't have considered an NAIA or a Paul Quinn or a small HBCU had COVID not happened. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like a trickle-down effect, and I've been blessed with that. But some coaches have already said, hey, we're not going to get another kid until 2023. Like they have their minds made up. And so it's a blessing for me because I'm getting some really good student athletes this year. But it's mostly from film.
I honestly didn't realize that all of the contributing factors that goes into recruiting, they're recruiting while dealing with a pandemic. That's definitely tough for sure.
You have kids that don't have game film because coaches may not have recorded a film. And then they're trying to scrounge up game film. Or now you maybe set a workout up for just them because you don't want to have a lot of people in the gym. So you're working out 1 or 2 people just to see if they can go. But right now with the pandemic, normally I'm used to having a workout in April with my whole team plus any new players that are interested. So I would have somewhere between 30 and 60 players in a gym. But right now, you can't do that. That's taboo at this point. So my workout is kind of null and void right now. Players are asking me, new students are asking me, Coach, are you having visits on campus? No. I have a virtual tour. If that suffices, that's what the school looks like. And it's tough because, people don't want to go to school where they can't walk the campus and see what it's like and see the dorm rooms. So we're just living in that time where virtual is in. And it's sad and unfortunate.
Absolutely. So I do want to ask you though, how difficult was it to make that decision of you guys opting out this season?
Ooh. Difficult, very difficult, because I dealt with the many different emotions of my players on a day-to-day basis, calling me, Coach, I'm just checking in with you. Oh, well, I'm fine. Well, I'm not. This is what I'm dealing with at home. A lot of the kids wanted to come back to school because they're in bad home lives, or they're not being fed properly, or just off the strength of I really miss being at school and miss doing my own thing. So it was unfortunate because we didn't allow our students to come back in the spring like most institutions did. We remained virtual the whole right now. And most people at the break allowed their students to come back. So when we didn't allow our students to come back, our president decided to allow our sports to return. And when he allowed our sports to return, our men's basketball team started. It was kind of like a trial and error thing. We wanted to see how we can manage COVID in small study groups. So basically it was like, we're going to bring men's basketball back to see if we can manage it. If we can manage it, then we'll slowly add each sport back. So we were going to be the only ones on campus. But at the time, the men played. They had 2 weeks of practice, played 1 game, had a situation where they were in contact with a team that ended up having a player that had COVID. And we all know that story. It kind of just went through the whole team. Our president said, well, it's up to you guys. This is going to be your start date. And then that day that we decided to return, they told us no. And they gave us 2 more weeks after the quarantine. And then more positive tests started to come up with the men's team. And they said, well, Coach, when do you want to return? And at that point, my girls' hearts were broken twice. And for me, knowing what they were already going through, I felt like I couldn't be the one that allowed for it to be broken a 3rd time. So they asked me what I wanted to do. After they had already told the girls, hey, we're going to bring you back. We just don't know exactly when because of COVID. We were already 6 or 7 games in conference. So and at that point, we're forfeiting games that we are not even there to practice to compete in. And I just kind of said, we're not going to play. And my president said to me, are you sure? I told him, yeah, I'm very sure at this point. And I sat back and thought about it. I have several young ladies that aspire to be professional athletes. I didn't want to put them in a harmful situation. I didn't want to put them in a situation to where they go and they compete and they injure themselves for their careers. I mean, we're talking about kids that hadn't played basketball in a year. Mind you, they may be working out, they may be playing street ball, but we're talking about hardcore working out the way that I want them to, and then I'm going to ask them to go out and bounce the ball and make shots the way I want them to, knowing they're not in the proper shape. So there's more risk for injury. And I wouldn't feel right in myself saying, hey, show up and play, and then you blow out a knee. Although that can happen at any time, I just think this wouldn't have been the year for us to justify that kind of injury. And then you go and you say, oh, it's just because you weren't in shape. Well, that's our fault they weren't in shape. So at this point, I decided to opt out. Trust me, my girls were upset. But then when I had a Zoom call with them, explaining my reasons why, they calmed down and they went, you know what, Coach, thinking about it the way you said it, that's right. I mean, that's what we just need to do, and we need to get our minds ready for next year. And with us not losing any eligibility, I have my full team returning. Team full of players that know my system returning.